Yeah, it's interesting to see how NFTs have had its finger, I think, on a lot of different industries out there, from music to media, to movies, to trading cards and digital collectibles, and now like storytelling. I think is a really interesting natural progression for it. And you started something called Meta Studios, and you
Mhm.
guys are working on your own projects around this, kind of combining storytelling and narratives and NFTs. Can you explain kind of what the idea is behind that and maybe some of the things you're working on?
Sure, yeah, and I hate to be disagreeable, but I kind of disagree about one thing that you said, which is, it's not time now for story to be part of it. It was always
Mhm.
time, and I think it was fundamentally the misstep that we took in this business. First of all, was that we didn't realize that the most useful utility that people could look to would be storytelling in this space. So what happened was a lot of people, we had the boom, and a lot of people were obviously. It felt like the .com bubble of the mid to late 90s, right? Where
Mhm.
everybody's like, we could make websites. Let's get a $30 million private sale or something. And money was kind of flowing in. And then, of course, what happened with .com, the bubble burst, because bubbles burst, right? So
Mhm.
we had this bubble. And what should have been happening, and I think what we were doing with Bitcoin Origins, we were telling stories and saying storytelling is the utility. You're talking about staking and all this other kind of stuff. Those are all super valuable, and the potential for blockchain is amazing. It can do all of these interesting things. To me, I wanted to do things like mutable assets, send out, instead of just burning an NFT, send out an NFT that on a certain day of the year, for example, suddenly it looks different for a day and then it changes back. And you're telling a story with that. You might do a time travel story where reality changes and your NFT changes for that day, and then it comes back, right? So I felt that we were missing an opportunity, even though Bitcoin Origins was doing well in the storytelling space. So to get to your question, my company's called Meta Studios. We actually were founded in 2014, so we beat Zuckerberg by about 6 years, 7. Um, I was actually really annoyed when he called his company Meta. But what can you do? What can you do, right?
Right,
And
right.
it's an acronym. It stands for Media, Education, Technology, and Advancement. And the idea being that, I do media. Um, I care about education. I think it's really important. And I don't mean like spinach education. We're just telling people, 1+1 = 2 and all that kind of stuff. It's more like helping people learn from seeing and doing and participating, right? T is for technology, and the A is for advancement, because my entire career I've spent being an advocate for creators and creators' rights. So, look at this space, right? This is a space where creators can thrive, but they need some guidance, they need some help, and so that's part of what we try to do as well.
No, that's awesome. And I love to see the progression in your work, and now, getting bold and ambitious and going for it with Meta Studios.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot from your project, Another Path.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe the objective that you want to accomplish there, and also what that kind of is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so here's the thing, right? Like one
Hmm.
thing that seems very natural, Brandon, don't you think that like comic books actually work in this space quite well? They're a
Oh
great
yeah.
way to tell a story. They're very economical. People like collectibles. Um, but not being a satisfied kind of person, I'm like, okay, let's do comic books that have an attachment to a treasure hunt that is tied to collectibles. So with Bitcoin Origins, that was very successful. It was on the Wax network. We did a treasure hunt that had these really cool collectibles that Mute did, right? The art was brilliant. It had its rarities and its collectability. It had its stuff, right? Um, and and all along, what I really want to do is to take the form, which is Web3. What can this medium do? Well, this medium can do treasure hunts, and we love that. So we brought a treasure hunt, which is the Another Path side of our project. If anyone wants to go to anotherpath.net, you can see like a treasure hunt. And obviously we have our Discord server. But the goal was always to tell a really cool story, because story is everything. Like, story is what I do. So another path was the treasure hunt side of it, and people began to learn and unfold like an onion, you know, like peeling the layers of an onion. They began to see and find things, and we're lined up to get launched on April 2nd, which is 4/2, and the number 42 is very important to us, as people will find if they get there. Underneath that treasure hunt sits right next to the main project, and we just started announcing the main project. It's called Quantumverse. And what I care about is speaking to the audience that lives inside this space, right? So Quantumverse is very much an allegory. It's a little bit of like, we know that we are living in the environment of the machine at the moment, you know? I'm an old punk, right? Look, there's the gray hair, right? And so I grew up distrusting government in all of its forms, and distrusting centralized banking, and all of these people that are like, we've allowed the opportunity to be our decision makers, who then come to us and make horrible decisions for us, right? I loathe it. I've hated it all my life. And here we are in this space where people are crying out for decentralization. So the story behind Quantumverse is that we are at a point in history, and this is true, by the way, you know, where we're looking at the rise of AI, and we're looking at what it means and what it does. And there are all these like apocalyptic stories of, you know, the machines take over and Arnold Schwarzenegger shows up and like kills people, you know, right? And it's been described as a thing called the singularity, the moment that we can't go back, right? The moment that the machines take over. But there's actually a more insidious part of this, which is called the soft singularity, which I believe we're now in. And it's the part where humanity gets to the point where it can't avoid the singularity. Unless we change, right? Unless we do things differently, we won't be able to avoid it. So we're going to experience a singularity, just like we're going to experience all of this climate change, all of the wars and famine, all of the crazy stuff that we're watching. And the machine that in the fiction is basically nurturing this and making it happen. It's responsible for all of this difficulty. It's responsible for people's cognitive dissonance and manipulating people so that it can get itself to a place of prominence and then basically run everything. And into all of this, there are 12 clans that throughout history, throughout the last 2,000 years, all of these incredible people like Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci and Ctesibius and Sun Tzu have all really seen that machine is inevitably going to happen. So just before everything kicks off, which is right now in history, we take all of our coding and we throw it all off up into space. We put it on the asteroids. We hide it from the machine so it can't get it. And that coding is done and hidden in the form of cryptocurrencies.